Okay, welcome everyone to the Neighborhood Food Network call where we shift to talk about the solutions to creating healthy communities. It is a much welcome relief with all the bad news that's going on in the world. We really appreciate you all being on the call. And I do not see Brittany on the call. Anne, do you want to check in with her?
I
And
did check in with her about 10 minutes ago. So,
did you give her the link for the call? Did
yes,
you? Okay, thank you so much for doing that. All right, so we will, before she comes on, we'll just talk a little bit about the Neighborhood Food Network. We have had over 145 people sign up to be hosts and or facilitators of the Neighborhood Food Network on their street. We don't know, we're not aware of how many have actually started this. We know that there are several that have. We haven't heard back from all of them. And these folks have received some Baker Creek heirloom seeds, a few of those, and we are also encouraging seed saving. So tonight we're going to be talking about that, and we might be able to set up some type of network of seed saving amongst each other. It's a really great way to share the thousands of seeds that you get when you let one plant go to seed, right? I mean, way more than you would ever need. So we'll be talking about that tonight. And the Neighborhood Food Network is we are committed. Okay, let me start that again. The Neighborhood Food Network is committed to creating national food security one street at a time. And we do this by empowering neighbors to invite, inspire, and excite your neighbors to grow food, front yard, backyard, balcony, rooftop, right? Grow food locally and source food locally. And we are excited about this for many reasons. One of them is because if the power goes out, we have a power outage, right? The grocery stores, no food after about 3 days. And that's how long it takes for people to resort to violence to feed their family. So we think it would be a really great idea to have a backup. And that backup would be growing food in your backyard, your front yard, your rooftop, your balcony, to support your family. Another reason is because you're opting out of GMOs and toxic, the whole toxic food system, all the chemicals and all of that. So you are now eating fresh food, even if it's just a small amount of fresh food, but you are eating fresh food that has antioxidants that fight cancer, that fight disease, that boost your immune system. And we're excited because it creates community. We are hearing about people that have started this that are now sharing peaches, and they're getting free tomatoes, and they're getting raspberry bushes from their neighbors, and they are connecting with neighbors that they've never met before. I connect with my neighbors. They have alpacas that are the cutest things. They're like stuffed animals, like eye to eye, like giant stuffed animals. They're the cutest things you've ever seen. So they've brought a lot of joy to our life, and I'm sharing tomatoes with them this week. And I don't know, they're sharing something with me. So, it's just really fun to connect with community. And you do not care if your neighbor is a Democrat or Republican if they come sharing peaches with you, right? You don't care about that. And they don't care about what your political party is. So it bridges the political divide. And I think we need that right now. I think we've had enough with, shutting everything down and judging everybody and who's what and being angry at each other. I think a lot of that was carefully orchestrated for us to all be angry at each other. And I'm done with that. The big pharma is not going to have me mad at my neighbor. I'm not doing that. Okay. I'm not playing that game. So I hope that you all are interested in the Neighborhood Food Network and will take on being a facilitator, not just coming on this call to grow food, but you'll actually invite your neighbors to start getting together with you, connecting with you, talking about growing food, showing them each other, learning from each other. Is so great. And Melissa's saying she just started her first garden this year and you're really enjoying it. That's so awesome. So yes, and a big seed swap, Shepherd is saying, would be a fun way to connect too.
yes, we're trying
Absolutely.
to figure out how we can best facilitate that.
Great. Yes. And Frank
But
is,
I don't know, and when you were talking earlier, the story I told Zen last week was that the city was coming to put a big barrier up in the field behind my house, which meant I wouldn't be able to drive my truck through the field to get into my garden. And I went out there with a basket full of veggies. There were 3 trucks and about 6 guys. Gave them all veggies. We were talking. One guy said he didn't like vegetables. I was giving him a hard time about that, but he said he liked green tomatoes. So I went and grabbed a bunch of green tomatoes. And needless to say, they ended up erecting the barrier so that I could still drive my truck through.
Yay. See that? The power of persuasion with free food.
Free food does it every time.
Yes. Excellent. You want to share, Anne, about sharing the about tomato plants too?
Wagon, yeah. So I grew a whole flat of they were hybrid beefsteaks, which means they were determinate beefsteaks, which means they would only grow a certain height. So I didn't want to give people plants that would just take over and scare them. So I walked around with a little wagon and I had all these plants and I knocked on some doors and I saw people outside and a lot of people ended up taking them. And one person was like, could you mind if I took two? I'm like, here you go. So it's a great way to start conversations. So
speaking of conversations, while we're waiting for Brittany to get on the call, it appears she did not get the link. So I just sent that to her. And I want to mention that we had a great conversation on TNT Sky Dragon Slaying radio, TNT radio. If Anne, you could put the link on there. I just sent it out in the email today. So if people could check that out. We talked all about GMOs and glyphosate in the food supply. It's a 2-hour podcast. I don't know what's going on. There's this new trend, 2-3-hour podcasts. I don't know who has that kind of time, but the conversation went so fast. I can't even, I didn't even get in everything that I wanted to talk about. So, and I've been told that people found it very, very valuable. So please check that conversation out. And then also we were mentioned on Joe Rogan this week, who has 100 million followers or something like that. So that was super exciting. This is the second time he's mentioned us. The first time was not so favorable. He had some lady on, some shill that was talking about how perhaps we spiked breast milk with glyphosate, right? That our glyphosate test results with breast milk, glyphosate and breast milk were spiked, and he didn't let me defend myself. I asked to come on, I don't know if he didn't see my tweet or whatever, but so that time was not very favorable. But this time he redeemed himself and he mentioned Moms Across America testing Impossible Food Burger and finding glyphosate 11 times higher than the Beyond Meat burger. So we want to reiterate, I just wanted to bring this up again because the testing is so important. And we are looking to test school lunches for glyphosate, and we need support in that. We need people to please get school lunches, freeze them, email me at zen@momsacrossamerica.org. And let us know if you can support getting school lunches tested. And also we need to raise $1,000 per sample to get tested, because we're not just testing for glyphosate, we're testing for 203 different, pesticides and heavy metals and nutrients. And I know this isn't Neighborhood Food Network stuff, but it does contain to the food supply. And I just wanted to mention that before we had Brittany come on, if she gets the link and is able to come on. So I wanted to make sure to mention those. Okay, well, it appears that our guest did not get the link. And
well, yeah, she has it. So hopefully she'll be coming on soon. But maybe you want to tell them that we now have a brand new Facebook page up.
Okay, do you want to show that? Did you have a question, Elise?
Yes, I have a question about the school lunch. I'm going to try to have my granddaughter bring one when I go to Maryland. Do I get do I have to have the packaging first, or how do I go about that?
So, by the way, this Anne looks great. Thank you so much for putting up the Neighborhood Food Network page. So all you do is they give her food. Give her money. She buys the lunch. She grabs the chicken sandwich, puts it inside her lunchbox or a plastic bag, something, and brings it home. It doesn't have to be frozen. It doesn't have to be in a cooler. It doesn't degrade that fast. So just the main thing, she's not going to take soup or macaroni and cheese. It's so messy, right? Just whatever, the pizza, the hot dog, the burger, the chicken sandwich, the main thing, and puts it in a freezer bag, brings it home. And, mom uses a Sharpie and says, Wichita, Kansas, the date, her name and phone number, just in case somebody needs to call her for any reason. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And we don't need to name the schools. This is not out to shame schools. This is out to, get the food supply in order, which is a national food issue. So Thank you, Anne, for showing the Facebook page. We are started doing social media now for Neighborhood Food Network. We have filed for a separate LLC and an EIN number. We're going to get the nonprofit paperwork filed, so it'll be completely separate from Moms Across America.
I put the link in the bottom if everybody wants to sign up, or we don't have a lot up there yet, but we will. We just created it today.
Yep. Yeah. So we've created it today. So if you want to go, is it an open public group, Anne? So people can just join the group? Yeah. Okay. Or is it just a page or a group?
I think it's a group.
Okay. So
yes.
If it is a group, then people can join.
We have 5 members. Woo!
Okay. So we're creating this as a separate nonprofit. That way, funders who are interested in supporting the food supply, but not in any other issues that we deal with, will can be comfortable with doing that, because this is only focused on food. So we won't be posting about any other issues on the Neighborhood Food Network except for growing food. So all right, well, I can talk a little bit.
I can talk a little bit about seed saving, because I have become a little bit obsessive about it. Different vegetables require different ways of saving the seeds. So everybody should do like a little research, but just to give you an idea, the way like tomato seeds are wrapped in that gel, when you're cutting a tomato and you see all the seeds in that gel, that's there to protect them until the following spring. So in order to save the seeds, you have to ferment them for 3 days in a little water. And then you scrape off the gel, and then you dry them, and then you save them. And it's worked great for me. Stuff like green peppers, you let them get as ripe as they can, and then all you do is scrape the seeds out and put them on a plate and let them dry, and that's great. If you have vegetables in your garden that have bolted, some of those I'll just let bolt, and then I'll look that vegetable up exactly while I'm out in the garden, and figure out what to do. Like lettuce, you'll let it flower, and then it starts getting a little fuzzy things like dandelions, and when it starts getting fuzzy like that, I chop off the head, and I'll put it in a paper bag and let it dry out some more, and then you'll have all these lettuce seeds. You can literally take that and like shake it over your garden and start another crop of lettuce. It's super easy, super fun, and it's super free. We love free.
Yes, we love free.
There's some other ones like the calendulas that I offered to have send people seeds. Maybe I'll put my address in here again. Those you plant once, and every year you can save the seeds, and there's just the coolest looking seeds. And calendula, I'm going to be posting I didn't have time. I'm going to post my body balm recipe. Calendula is very skin healing. It's a marigold, so it'll repel certain animals. And beans, that's pretty easy. You just leave them on the plant until they dry up and turn brown, and then you save the seeds, and you save them for next year. Just make sure they're dry. Make sure they're dry before you store them. If you're going to store them in like a glass jar or anything, make sure they're super dry. If not, you can just restore them in a paper envelope. And certain seeds will store longer than others. I planted my.
Hang on a second, Anne. Why do you say paper envelope and not just a Ziploc plastic bag? Does that contain
the Ziploc? If there's any moisture left in the seeds, that the plastic bag will keep the moisture in, and if the seeds aren't dry enough, they will they'll mold.
Okay. All right. So paper envelopes for seeds.
Yeah, unless they're really dry. I store, my brother is he doesn't really listen to me, and so he's on a lot of medication. So we have 1 million empty prescription bottles around. So sometimes I'll save them, and I'll label them to store seeds in.
Okay.
But
you really want something that's breathable, so that if there's moisture still in there, it will evaporate. Okay. I just want to make sure to touch on a very basic seed saving technique that is just, it just makes so much sense. You just let the plant go to seed. So you don't pull it after the lettuce. So there gets to a point when the lettuce gets bitter, right? Everybody knows that you can't just let lettuce grow all the, the whole season. There's a time when it's like, okay, we better harvest now. Otherwise it's just going to be too bitter. And it's when it starts to grow up tall, right? And then, so you just let it grow, and you let the seeds at the top grow to flowers, and or the beans or the spinach or whatever it is, you let it grow to flowers, and you let them get dry, and then you pull the plant up or cut it, whichever you want, and you take the plant and you put it in a brown paper bag and you shake it. So you put it in the bag and then you shake the bag and all the seeds come off, and then you can just pour the seeds onto a plate or into, whatever that is. Usually they're dry at that point, so you don't need to dry them out. It's, peppers and tomatoes and things like that. You need to put them on a plate so that they dry, like pumpkin seeds and squash seeds. But the plant, when it's a plant like spinach or lettuce, you put that whole plant into a brown paper bag and shake it. And then you can pour those seeds into a bag. And very good point. Somebody mentioned, please label it. Don't just assume you're going to remember that those were a certain type of squash seeds. I didn't remember to label the squash. I put them out on plates. I had all these different squash seeds on different plates, and had no idea what they were later.
I've done that too.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a nice surprise when you go out. Like when I planted the Three Sisters garden and I planted squash underneath the corn. Like, oh, here we've got a butternut squash, and over here we've got an acorn squash, and over here we've got a blue squash and all that. So I don't know. That's fun too. It's not the end of the world if you don't label, but it is much better to label, because then you know how much of each, you're planting and all of that.
Right. And Frankie is right. If you want to let the beans ripen on the vine, it does signal the plant that, oh, okay, I've produced my seed. I don't need to anymore. So you wait till the end of the season and then start saving the plants.
Yes.
So,
Anne is saying, make sure you can use a pantyhose over it after it blooms, right? That's a good idea. Put a pantyhose sock over the top of it after it blooms, and so that will save the seeds from falling into the ground, right?
So there are different types of seeds, like so certain flowers, like I have a batch of columbine in my wooded area that I planted from seed 2 years ago. This year it exploded into flowers and it was awesome. But the flowers are like a tube, and they dry out, and I literally tipped it over to my hand and all the seeds just fell out. So when I went back out there, I started saving the seeds, and I have some saved, but so that's why I kind of try to look them up. But I'm fascinated by all plants when they flower.
So what are some other seed saving things, tips? And when we save things like tomatoes that are moist and wet, don't we have to put them in water and see which ones float and things like that?
Yes. So you ferment them, and then
can you go through step by step? What is it that you do? Like you're saying,
so you
don't understand what that means.
You get your it should be a very ripe tomato because it'll have the most viable seeds, and then you kind of I just scoop out all the goop into a little glass prep bowl, like a little white or any kind of bowl. And then I'll go add a little water, non-chlorinated, filtered water. I'll add a little water, I'll stir it up, and then I'll just let it sit for 3 days. It may grow mold on it, that's fine. And then after 3 days, I will put them in a larger bowl and add some more water, and a lot of the non-viable seeds and the other stuff will float to the top. You kind of scoop that off, and then you pour it through a strainer, and you'll try to, you can scrub off any remaining gel so you can kind of clean the seeds off the best you can.
So the viable sinks.
Yes, viable seeds sink, and then you put them on my brother.
And Melissa, yes, this works for herbs too. Saving seeds like this, yeah. When the herbs go to flower, you can just shake those into a bag. Mm-hmm.
So this is a little parchment pie discs my brother bought for me. For some reason, he thought I was going to be making a bunch of pies, but right now I have my rose to burn tomato seeds on here.
So that they can dry out.
finished. I can't really, I could try.
And that's nicer than a plate because then you can shape
Right.
that and pour it right into a bag.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I can read, I have this labeled, Frankie. So I have roasted burnup here. And you really have to do that with tomatoes because I am growing a bunch of different kinds of tomatoes.
Yes.
So, but it's a lot of fun and it's super satisfying. Last year,
Thank you for reminding me. I haven't saved any seeds for my tomatoes yet, and they're just about to go to like be finished. Like I'm picking probably the last of the tomatoes this weekend. And I definitely need to save it. Yeah, so a paper coffee filter to dry on and it won't stick. That's
Yes.
a very good point, Kathy. Thank you. And Frankie is saying she's discovering new videos and shorts on YouTube that mention various seeds that need soaking, right? Yeah, from minutes to days or refrigeration before they will sprout. Yes, there are certain seeds definitely you want to refrigerate them before you plant them. There's some that, like over the spring, before you plant them in the spring, or if you're going to plant them in the fall, there's certain seeds you want to look into whether or not, and soaking, there's, beans need to be soaked before you plant them. So not before you save them, before you plant them. So you just take the dry beans out of the pods and you save those, but before you plant them, you want to soak them for 8 hours. So,
and I rarely remember to do that.
Yeah, well, it definitely helps with the sprouting.
I will tell you one thing though, when they say to plant it so far apart, I planted my cattle panel with, I thought, oh, I want more beans, so I'm just going to plant them closer together. I can barely get into my cattle panel right now. It was literally raining the other day and I wasn't even getting wet. I'm literally having to part all these leaves and I'm trying to find the beans because I planted them way too close together. So learn from my mistakes.
Well, that's what this conversation is all about. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and talk about any experiences they've had with seed saving, we're totally, welcome to hearing from other people. Oh, Melissa's going to plant garlic in the fall. She's excited about that. I'm excited about that too. We eat garlic daily. You're hoping you have enough for the summer at least. Absolutely. You want to plant, I would say, a couple hundred bulbs of garlic if you want, because then you've got one for, every day of the week if you want that. I mean, there are times you roast garlic, you're putting that whole bulb right on a piece of garlic bread, right? So, and
so I'd like to say something. I'd like to say something about her planting the garlic though. I'm not sure exactly where you live, but if you can buy some Rime, that really lightweight plant cover, and after you plant your garlic cloves, cover it up and pin it down until next spring when you start to see it's actually start to grow, and then take it off. Otherwise your squirrels might have fun. So that's what I do with my garlic.
And garlic needs to be planted in October or November. And you want to make sure you've got some cover for it, some like straw or, something to put over it. And you just leave it. Just make sure that it gets enough water in the spring. Around me in the springtime, I don't know why it doesn't seem to rain as much as during the summertime. That's just where I am. And so you want to make sure it gets this past spring, we had a dry spell and I did not water enough. So a lot of my garlic was too small. So you want to make sure that you water enough and that also you plant more than what you need, because you don't always get it, right? Sometimes the garlic doesn't make a bulb, or it's very tiny bulb or something like that. So I'm definitely planting more than what we need next year. But we had at least, I don't know, 150 or 200 bulbs of garlic this year. And so I just go down in my basement, and you after you harvest them, you don't wash them, you put them on a rack and you put a fan on them for 2 weeks straight. Okay. You got to have a fan somewhere. Yeah. 2 weeks straight. So it dries everything out. And then later on, you can brush the dirt off, take the first outer layer off, so it's pretty and white, and cut off the roots, and then cut the tops. You want to leave enough top on there so that bacteria doesn't get into the garlic. So then after you've dried it out, you can cut down more of the top.
And I'm posting our link to the article that we did on this very subject with garlic and onions. But also, here's another thing that I would like. I ended up putting a bunch of garlic in my compost bin because it only lasts for 9 months. Let's say 9 months.
Oh, you
And
threw away garlic in the compost?
it was completely dried out. So
Oh,
this year I'm
garlic.
going to dehydrate some.
Okay, dehydrate. Yeah.
My brother had bought a big, one of those great big huge jars of garlic, minced garlic from Costco. And so I bought these silicone dehydrator tray sheets, and I drained the garlic, and then I spread it out onto the sheet and I dehydrated it. It's now sitting in a jar. I haven't powdered it or anything. I'm just going to wait until I need it. And then I took the water that came out of that jar and I froze them in ice cubes trays. So I'm going to throw those in pots of soup. But I will this year, the garlic that I grew, which I didn't grow as much as you then, so I will try to dehydrate some to save it, because I really did not like throwing any garlic into the compost pile.
Yeah, that just sounds sacrilege to me. I've got 4 other grown male beings that eat plenty of garlic, so we're going to eat it all. Lisa, you have a question?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm Italian, so I never throw garlic away.
I know.
I
Doesn't
make,
that sound like sacrilege?
I make a garlic syrup every fall. And
What?
what I do is I peel the outer sheath of the garlic and put the cloves in apple cider vinegar. And you want to put a non-reactive lid on top and just keep that. The longer you keep it, the better. But at least like 6 weeks. Then what you want to do is strain it. And let's say you end up with a cup of apple cider vinegar. You put half of the apple cider vinegar back into the garlic and another half of your local honey. So basically the liquid in there is half of what the apple cider vinegar weighed out to be, and then half a cup of honey. And then when I start to get sick, that's my antibiotic. That's what I eat.
Yeah, that's what Melissa just said, is a syrup for colds. I heard you could just do honey.
In the garlic. Yeah. I would extract it in the I mean, it's not as strong a menstruum. I would use the apple cider vinegar.
The vinegar draws out, right? It's like a tincture.
Yep.
Yeah, it's more like a tincture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is awesome.
And then the honey has healing properties.
I absolutely. Now I have a question. We learned from Carol Gervais from Food Integrity Now that when you crush garlic, you put it in a press, it creates a chemical. There's a chemical reaction that's created.
Allison.
Thank you, Allison. ALLICIN. But you have to wait 10 minutes for that to happen before you put it in heat. Cook it, and so you want to wait 10 minutes after you press your garlic. So I'm wondering, would it be better to press the garlic and then put it in apple cider vinegar rather than the whole cloves? What do you think about that? Same with onions too, Frankie?
So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos where they were just using white vinegar, and then they were putting all the garlic cloves in a jar and white vinegar and putting it in the fridge. And they said, then you could just pull the cloves out and then you could mince them up, use them like you're cooking. And then they also said, they also said you obviously save the vinegar, but I haven't heard about apple cider. I'd rather do apple cider.
Mm-hmm. So Lisa, you're saying
the thing with when you crush it, the allicin increases, but you're supposed to use it by a certain point because then it decreases.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's on a curve.
Okay, I see.
So I would put it in whole.
Which is so important. Why we want to grow food in our backyards, because you're getting fresh garlic. It hasn't been sitting there, for a really long time. And, you want to grind it, you want to press it fresh and use it fresh. Okay. So there's different uses. That the Allison one is you're going to get those benefits when you're cooking with garlic fresh, and the other antioxidant type, antiviral uses you get from the cloves and extracting with the vinegar and that. Okay, great. I didn't know we were going to have such a discussion about garlic, but that's why I love these calls, because it's going to go where it goes.
So she said Brittany said she hasn't been getting she didn't get the links, and you and I both sent them to her. So I don't know what's going on, but we'll have to, I guess, reschedule her.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that, everybody.
Hey, son.
I sent her the link.
Is that Mark?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on your dry bean. I think that would speed up the process, soaking dry beans, but that is certainly not a requirement if you have good seed.
Good.
Oh,
So,
okay.
you know, we plant 500 acres and we don't soak any of it.
Okay.
But realize that the larger the seed gets, the more water it has to imbibe to germinate. So, you know, maybe you do want to irrigate your dry beans after you plant them if it's not going to rain in, you know, 5, 6 days. But just realize the larger the seed, the more water that seed needs to imbibe to spark germination.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. Mark, I have a question about growing food. I sprouted, you know, I grew the sprouts in the house for the cauliflower and the greens. And, you know, I know you told me not to do peas, or maybe it was Joe that said not to do peas, but the label said I could do peas. And I put them out in the garden and we planted them. And I don't know, maybe they were too leggy because I don't have a light out over the top. I don't know what happened, but they're like all dead. I don't know, maybe we didn't water enough, or maybe it was too hot during the day. Is this the wrong time planting?
Did you transplant live plants, live
Yes.
sprouts?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, usually when you take sprouts, you need to put them outside, harden them off. They're little babies, right? And if they've been inside, they aren't very hardy. So I really, really like planting broccoli and all the coli crops very shallowly, 1/4 inch deep, and then cover them with a 2x4 or a 2x6. So water them and then cover them with a 2x6. You'll have 100% germination outside.
And how long do you keep them covered for, Mark?
Till they germ. So you can tip it up and look, and if they're not all up yet, leave it on. So I would say probably 4 or 5 days, but it depends on the temperature, right? This is typically early in the spring, but you know, you can also do it now. So anything that's very difficult to germinate and, you know, would be susceptible to a hard pounding rain or something like that, put a 2x4 or 2x6 over the top, untreated, please. And you'll be amazed at the germination you get.
I know they do that for carrots too.
Yeah, anything small seeded that's difficult to get germinated.
Okay.
So
And
I prefer that over starting them inside. Now, you know, if you want to go to a larger plant, a larger pot, then they're not so fragile. But if you have just a tiny little bit of soil around them and you transplant them and the sun cooks them for half an hour, they're done.
yeah,
So
I think that's what happened. I planted them at night to try to get them, you know, before dusk, to try to give them time.
Sure.
But
Yeah, and you got to water them in, and you got to be a firm planter. You can't be afraid of stuffing the root ball in or pushing with both your knuckles as hard as you can, right? You have to be a firm planter because you remember capillary action needs to bring water to that plant. And if you have any kind of airspace at all around that little bitty plug that you planted or whatever you plant, if there's any airspace at all, it'll prevent it from getting any moisture from the soil. So be a firm planter when you're planting live plants. And also don't be afraid to rip up that root ball. If it's been going around in a circle in the pot, please take your little trowel and cut down each of the 4 sides and prevent that spiraling, right? You want the roots to immediately grow out. So don't be afraid
not be
to
spiraling. You don't want them in a bunch.
Yeah,
growing out.
exactly.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to get a little aggressive with that root if it's root bound.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anybody
So
else?
it's probably too late to start any more brassicas from seed now.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'd
It
have to
depends. Are you harvesting the foliage, or what are you after?
Well, I
Or
have a bunch of broccoli that's probably about 2 feet high now. I don't have any like
Darn.
heads coming out, but yes, I have been dehydrating them for my greens.
See, I didn't listen to
yeah,
Ann. I didn't
the,
plant on time, and now Ann's got broccoli 2 feet high, and I've got sprouts that are dead. This is why timing is so important with gardening.
yeah, coli crops though in general are very frost tolerant. So a lot of their cover crop partners, they say 19 degrees before they'll die. So, seed is pretty cheap. I would go ahead and plant them even today. We have a lot of growing season left. In our area, we won't have a killing frost until October 13th is our average. So there's a fair amount of growing season left. Now, to get a broccoli head or a cauliflower head, that might be a different story. But if you're trying to grow greens, absolutely. You have
Okay.
plenty of time.
All right.
Greens
So,
are probably a, 30-day crop?
yeah,
40?
I think so. I think
Yeah,
so.
and broccoli greens and all brassica greens are super nutritious.
Yeah, that's, yep.
Eileen is asking if planting comfrey near plants, not crowding, but near. Does that good? Does anybody know anything about planting comfrey near other plants? No. All I know is I
You,
planted
you
it.
don't want to, you want to not, it'll take over.
Oh, it's too.
You
It
don't
gets
want
too
to,
big.
yeah, the roots, yeah, you don't want it will spread.
I
Okay.
use it
Want
for
to
a
keep it
green
simple.
manure in my compost pile, and then I also will cut it down and put them in a 5-gallon bucket of water and put a lid on it and let it sit for a few weeks, and then I'll strain it out and use it as a compost tea.
But the main purpose for comfrey, you want to use it for pain and for stitching bones together. If anybody breaks a bone, you want to take the comfrey leaf and dry it or make a poultice out of it and put it on the sprained wrist or the broken bone. And it's been shown to actually help stitch the bone back together. But you don't want to put comfrey on top of an open wound because it'll actually help close up the wound so fast that bacteria can grow on the inside before, like, you know what I mean? So you don't want to put it on an open wound. You want to just put it on a bruise or a closed wound, broken arm, something like that.
Oh, Frankie said comfrey tea is only for compost. Oops.
It's for compost. Yeah. And comfrey tea, you don't want to ingest it as much as you want to use it as a poultice. There's something about ingesting it that it does help with pain, but you don't want to do that too much. So,
somebody was asking about anybody know any about citrus seeds, like as far as saving seeds, Jody? I think you could just take them out of the plant and dry them. I don't know a lot about saving citrus.
I think so, but I think I saw on a TikTok that it helps to open them up when you plant them. They're like you would open up a mango seed but I'm not sure. I don't know about that. I haven't planted enough.
I think there's something they call scarification, right, Mark? Certain seeds.
When you open it up.
I know some watermelon seeds I was reading up on that, and it said to keep them in the refrigerator and then the freezer for a little bit so it thinks it's winter, and then take it out. And I did that. I did all that, and then I completely forgot about them in the fridge.
That's called cold stratification.
Mm-hmm.
There is scarification too. A lot of your legumes have a hard seed coat, so they will stay dormant longer than you would actually like them to. Those seeds typically, to get the germination, you will scarify, and you can all make scarifiers. Just go get 120 mesh sandpaper and put it inside a tin coffee can, and then just tumble your seeds in it. And that's all you need to do is scratch the seed coat for scarification.
Yeah. That would certainly be easier than doing it by each seed.
Yeah, and you don't need an expensive machine or a tumbler. Just put some sandpaper, fine grit sandpaper inside, and put a few seeds in there, a couple ounces, and then just shake it or roll it across you know, the floor or whatever, and it'll scarify the seed coat.
Good tricks. Tricks of the trade here. I don't, we're gonna have to look up how to write scarify. I don't know. I have to look up how to write that again. Okay, we're letting Elise back in. Do some seeds that are saved and then planted not produce fruit? For example, avocados. Well, avocados take a very long time. I think it's like years, don't they? Anybody know? Avocados take a very long time. You're in for like 7 years, I think, for it to, you know, grow into a small tree and then fruit. And that's why these small trees cost like 40, 50, 60, $89. Because somebody has put years of, you know, watering into them. Anybody else know anything else about avocados? That's the breadth of my knowledge on them, that it can take many years. Anybody else know?
I thought somebody was saying, what are the trees where they won't really produce fruit unless you graft them? Like you put a fruiting branch onto a new, I heard most avocado trees are just decorative, that you have to graft them or something to get fruit. I don't know.
Okay, well, Sylvia, maybe you can look into that, grafting avocados. Maybe somebody who has an avocado tree that is fruiting, you can just ask them for a branch and then graft that onto your tree. What you would do, I believe, is you just cut away some of the bark and then you attach it onto it, right? And help it grow that way. Yeah, there's some very cool videos around propagating trees too, where they put like a little plastic ball or a cup around it with dirt. They cut the branch and then they put a ball or something around it, and then where it's bare, it grows little roots, and then you can cut off that branch, and then now you've got a whole nother branch with roots that you can use instead of growing it from seed. You now have a whole, you know, mini tree. People do fig trees like that very easily, and you can sell a fig tree for 20 to 50 bucks depending on how big it is. Your kids could have a whole little business growing from their back. I've encouraged my kids so many times. I'm like, guys, just get some pots, get some dirt, and start propagating fig trees. You know, like you could make a decent amount of money from those. So, you know, just something to think about for a little side job for your friends. Kelly's asking if anybody has experience with pawpaws. I was given some seeds from a friend and want to start some in our neighborhood. Should I start indoors or outside?
I don't even know what a pawpaw is.
A pawpaw, unless Kelly, you want to unmute yourself and say what you know about it. Do you want to, Kelly? You're gonna unmute yourself.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, sorry, I've been sneezing, so I've been off. Yeah, I've never tried one, but they're supposedly like almost like a tropical tasting fruit, and they grow. I'm in North Carolina now, so I know they grow in this region. So they're not actually tropical. And a friend of mine was at a farm in Tennessee and came back with a bag of pawpaw seeds, and I've been dying to try it. And I love the idea of having like fruit trees or blueberry bushes, because my neighborhood wants to do something, but not everybody wants to actually do the work. And I love the idea of like edible landscaping, because we have a big area where we can do that. So that it's maybe less labor intensive, but also I'm thinking like high calorie density and fun to eat. And we already have a lot of wild blackberries and wineberries in the neighborhood. So I think it would be really popular and easy to get people on board.
It's hardy to zone 5.
What's that?
I could grow a pawpaw. It's hardy to zone 5 or
Yeah.
2. I don't know if it says zone 5.
It's the largest indigenous fruit in America, is my understanding. And
Yeah.
Just put a link to the spruce down there, all about the pawpaw.
It's sweet like a mango or papaya,
Right.
that kind of thing. And you can dry it and it'll be sweeter, you know, sweet. It's good, I believe it's good dehydrating, but people make a lot of jams out of it. And it's very sweet. So Carla's just saying, just plant it and water it.
Okay. Mark, did you say something?
They don't like too much water. So I guess some plants don't like too much water. So, okay. Bats.
Sorry, I can't help you with a pawpaw.
Yeah, too tropical for Michigan. We're
Wisconsin and we could grow it.
What, Ann?
I said, Mark and I are in Wisconsin and it says we'll grow in zone 5.
Okay. Well, it seems like a pretty tropical tree, but
Lucy makes a great black bean mango salad. She just made like 25 pounds for church. And I would like to find a substitute for mango. So that would be great.
that would be great. If you can have Lucy put that recipe up on the Neighborhood Food Network. And by the way, Lisa, your garlic recipe, we want those recipes up on the Neighborhood Food Network. Please send them to Ann, folks, your recipes, okay? Whatever it is that you're making right now.
That sounds great.
Great. Oh yeah, so pawpaw was a food for Native people living in Michigan. Well, there you go, Frankie, bring in the history. Thank you so much. Pawpaws and papayas produce fruit in about 6 to 7 months. That's awesome. Yeah, we've got some history buffs on here. And they grow well in the tropics, as do avocados. Okay, great. And they grow in New York State. You have to keep the seeds moist, says Danielle, and refrigerate them. And I can ask our friends who grow and sell them if they'll share some info. That's great. So Anne is posting, we're not going to do this publicly, but Anne is going to post her address for people who want to send her a self-addressed stamped envelope for seeds. She's got, as she mentioned, calendula and tomatoes out the wazoo and all kinds of things. So she will share seeds.
Also, up on the website, I put a new recipe that I did a few days ago. I had a bunch of tomatoes that were looking kind of sketchy in my garden, but I really don't like to waste food. So I kind of chopped them all up, threw them on a cookie sheet with some garlic and onions, and then threw them in a bowl pot with some. I used vegetable stock, and the recipe's up on our webpage. For fresh tomato soup. It was the best tomato soup I've ever had. And it was so easy. And I just froze the rest. So I just made another batch today. I was telling Zen, I took my basket since I think I have about 80 plants. I went up back there with a basket to harvest and I ended up having to switch to the wheelbarrow. So, and I might not plant that many tomatoes next year. It's like Little Shop of Horrors.
All righty. Well, anybody else have any other questions? Could be for anybody, could be about anything with gardening. And any more questions about seed saving or?
We will reschedule Brittany and have her on, but.
So sorry about that. I don't know, I've sent it to her 3 times. I mean, she's not.
I did too, so I don't know what happened.
Okay. Frankie's saying if tomatoes have any bad or moldy spots or areas, toss them. The fruit doesn't compartmentalize to stop the mold. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, if it was moldy, I don't use it. But if it had like a bug bite in it or something, I would just cut away around that area and then I would use it. But mold was a no-go. So unfortunately, here's a tip for everybody. If you have tomatoes and you're going to have and you were planning on harvesting and then you're going to have a big rainstorm, go out there and pick those tomatoes before the storm because they suck up a lot of the water and then a lot of them will start cracking and then they'll get moldy.
Yep. And bugs will get in there, stuff like that. Danielle's saying she's setting up some salsa kits with her invitation to the garden club. Yay, meeting on her street. And I'm putting out a table with a free recipe for making salsa and giving away my excess tomatoes and jalapenos and onions, garlic, and cilantro. Danielle, that's awesome. That's so great. What a great idea. Salsa.
Do you have a good salsa recipe? Because we would love it.
Yeah, put the salsa recipe up on the
I'll send it to you. I can just take a picture of it. Yeah. Okay.
Send it to Ann.
I love these calls. I want to say goodbye.
Okay,
everybody. I have to go, but you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I always look forward to this.
Bye, Danielle.
Awesome.
Bye.
Okay, awesome. Great. Well, if we don't have other questions, I wouldn't mind closing out early. I am exhausted. Let's see, wait, Sylvia's saying, fun fact, there are 2 types of avocados. One is one sex in the morning and switches to the opposite sex in the afternoon. These are wacky avocados.
It's a good day when you learn something new, especially something wacky.
Yes, that is bizarro, Sylvia. I had no idea. That's so fun, but avocados are amazing. By the way, avocados, you can, once they're ripe, totally ripe, you can smash them up and use a little scooper, like a melon ball scooper, and take that avocado, mashed up avocado, and put it on a tray, parchment tray, and freeze it. And then you take that frozen balls of avocado, put them in a frozen bag, and you have guacamole in the springtime if you want, right? That's fresh stuff. So you can, and it doesn't brown. I just saw this on, somewhere.
You don't have to use lemon or anything?
This person said you don't have to add anything to it. As long as you freeze it right away, it doesn't brown. I don't know. You might want to try it. So, but you can, you can save your avocado. So if you get a lot of them, that's a good idea. Avocado pits make a nice pink pale fabric dye. Oh my gosh, we're learning something else. That's great. Very cool, Jody. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being on with us tonight. Thank you, Kelly and Elise and Lisa, for contributing, and Anne and everybody. Rachel, nice to see you. Sylvia, thank you. Kathy, Kate, and everybody. Appreciate your time. And please make sure to check out Neighborhood Food Network. Sign up to be a facilitator if you haven't yet. And make sure to share too, and join the Facebook page, okay? And send Anne your recipes and your garden pictures, okay? Lisa, we haven't seen your garden yet. We want to see your garden, what you're growing.
Me?
Yeah, I think it was Kelly who just started a garden. Or Kathy, we want to see pictures of your garden, okay? Send Anne the pictures of your garden, okay?
And you can press the little 3 dots in the chat and save all the chats.
There you go. That's right.
Saves as a, yeah.
Well, that's a good idea.
Okay,
yeah.
save
Good
chat,
night,
yes.
good night, Sen. Good night, Ann.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Ann.
Awesome.
Should be getting your
Thank
seeds
you,
in a
Ann.
few days.
Thank you.